Today on Locked On Red Wings, Detroit is coming up on 13 days off. Is this going to help or hurt the role that they're on?
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's a host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a sports writer for C&G newspapers, while I am a color commentator for Oakland University, ACHA D1's men's hockey. And bit of a light episode for you guys, right? We got a preview to do. Might finish it off with some How Do You Feel About It Friday. We haven't done that in a while, Scotty. Have not had a slow enough of a news day since the season has began to do a How Do You Feel About It Friday. So I'm kind of excited to do that for the first time in a long time. But we're going to lead today's episode off with just kind of talking about this 13 days off Detroit is going to have because of the Four Nations face-off, and whether or not this is going to help Detroit or going to hinder them as they kind of surge right now. So we'll talk about that. But first, got to let you guys know today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Scotty, the Red Wings are 15-4-1 under Todd McLellan. They have back-to-back 7-game win streaks, the latter of which is also an 8-point win streak. They're, as of recording this, the game between Ottawa and Tampa Bay, notwithstanding, they are first in the wild card, 1 point back of third in the Atlantic Division. They're about to play one more game on Saturday after 3 days off, and then have 13 more days off. In your opinion, do you see this break being a detriment to their success, or do you think it could help them kind of rest up and reload?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle, because I think if I had to pick, I would say it would hurt more than it would help. And the reason why is because everybody gets the same amount of time off. It's not like this is, the Wings are going to be well rested. It's okay, well, so are 31 other teams, right? Like everybody is getting this break. So I don't see that as a leg up on the competition, whereas playing and keeping, a quote unquote hot streak going, I think is probably a little bit more in favor of the Red Wings, and is something that not every team is doing. Not every team's on a W7 and beating some pretty good teams along the way. So look, at the end of the day, you play the cards you're drawn. I don't think this is what are they going to do? Like, they're going to pout and be like, oh, darn, like we have a lot of days off. Like, this sucks. No, dude, they're going to go home, spend some time with their families, enjoy the break, and then hopefully come back rested and ready to go. I think the silver lining is that they've been pretty banged up. And if you're going to have a giant 2-week break in the middle of a win streak, the least you can do is get healthy. And it looks like Comfer, we'll talk about that a little bit more in segment 2, but it looks like Comfer is close to being back. And Patrick Kane could always use more time. Obviously, he was out for a handful of games there. I feel like it's not a bad thing. Like, I'm not complaining about the long break because it's a chance to get healthy and rested.
Right.
But if I had to choose, I'd probably choose not to.
Yeah, I'm not thrilled about the 2 weeks off. I'm not really thrilled about the Four Nations face-off in general, and we'll talk about that more next week prior to the tournament. I think it's a massive waste of time, and I don't think the NHL, this whole thing for the Four Nation face-off is meant to be to bring in new fans. It's supposed to be an exciting alternative to the All-Star Game, international tournament. They haven't marketed it hardly at all. Do you hear anyone talking about the Four Nation face-off? That's a whole different topic. The Red Wings are peaking right now, and they're peaking ahead of the deadline, which is what you want. You want them peaking ahead of the deadline, because what you don't want, and the Tigers managed to pull it off, but what you don't want is to sell off and then go on a tear. You want to know what you have to do with this team prior to the deadline. But 2 weeks off because of this tournament it makes me not feel great. I lean exactly, my first gut reaction is the same as yours, Scotty, where it's like, this feels like it will hinder Detroit, be detrimental to their success more than help. I mean, you are on an incredible heater. You climbed your way not just back into the playoff picture, but into a playoff spot as of today. And so you risk losing all that momentum. Now, some people will try and tell you that there is no such thing as momentum in the locker room. Like game to game, it does not carry over because then you have day off and then you come back to the rink, you do morning skate, like that type of momentum. I don't buy that because to me, momentum is completely with like the same synonymous with confidence. And this team is playing with an unreal amount of confidence right now. They believe in themselves, they believe in each other, they believe in goaltending. And I'm afraid with 13 days off, that momentum, that confidence, not to say it'll fizzle away and go away. These are professional hockey players. It shouldn't. But I think that in that time, it does kind of simmer down, It does cool off. And that's what I'm afraid of. Now, like I said, they're professional athletes. In theory, they should be able to just pick up where they left off. But theory and reality are different. We've seen plenty of times where a lot of teams, after a break, come out flat. And that is not what I want. That is my biggest fear. But as you put it, Scotty, the flip side of this coin is they are a little bit banged up. Patrick Kane's still not playing 100%. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that. He's playing through something right now, and 2 weeks off could go a long way to healing up whatever upper body ailment is, ailing him. JT Compher might be coming back on Saturday. That's something we can talk about in our preview. But if he's not still at 100% to go, it gives him an opportunity to heal up and all the other undisclosed injuries. But as you put, Scotty, that's not exclusive to the Detroit Red Wings. That is something that every team in the NHL gets the benefit from. So right now, I already wasn't excited for the Four Nation face-off, and just the timing of it with where the team is peaking right now, it makes me a little bit bummed that we're about to go on a 13-day break, and all we can do is hope that they don't come back out on the other side flat.
Yeah, and I think this does kind of open the door a little bit for the All-Star break, Four Nations break, kind of, like how much is really necessary? Is this whole thing necessary? Is it even worth it at this point? Like I said, ultimately, these guys are going to be able to go home, spend time with their families, rest up, get healthy. Hopefully they are able to do that and come back ready to go. But because I'm sure they do not take that for granted, and I'm sure that they like that and will enjoy that as well. But 2 weeks a long time, man. That's a really, really long time. There's not another sport that takes that much time off in the middle of the season. Basketball's All-Star break is a weekend. Baseball's is less than a week. Football's isn't even during the season. Football's is before the Super Bowl, and no one plays in it anyway. Like, you know what I mean? Like 2 weeks in the middle of the year is really wild and not a normal thing in sport. So, but again, like the silver lining here is every team's in the same boat. It's the one thing you gotta remember. This is not like, oh, the Red Wings are getting screwed just because they're winning. Like, no, like 31 other teams also have 2 weeks off in the middle of whatever they're trying to do too. So, we'll see what happens, man. Adapt or die, as they say in Moneyball.
Correct. Adapt or die. So at the end of the day, these are professional hockey players, and they need to be able to push through nonetheless and make sure they don't come out flat. And that's on coaching too, to make sure those guys are ready for the start of the new year. I'd be
interested in the players' opinion of that.
I mean, last year with the All-Star break, they had 10 days off, and so it's really just an extra 3, but that extra 3 matters, man. That's an extra 3 days of not playing hockey. And, it had a ripple effect on the entire schedule. Like, a lot of – I don't know if fans noticed this, but there were a lot of back-to-backs and a lot of every other day games where in a normal season, there's, a lot more – game every 2 days, right? Or every 3 days, 2-day breaks in between. This season, it's been every other day, back to back on the weekend, every other day, because they compressed the schedule to make room for this tournament that nobody asked for. I get the All-Star break is boring. I'm digressing. I don't know. My biggest fear is they're playing so many games that Larkin or Raymond's going to get injured in a tournament that does not matter, that no one asked for. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, on Tuesday. That'll be like our Four Nation face-off preview, but yeah, that's just a kind of a hint at where my feelings lie on this whole tournament. Scotty, let's go to a quick break. When we return, we'll preview the game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Stay tuned for that. Looking for tickets to your next big event, whether it's a concert, comedy, or a sporting event, finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache. But with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. I'm gonna do you guys a favor. I'm gonna give you a break from the Stadium Series. I'll just read it verbatim today. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. I've been using Game Time Picks for a while, and here's why I love it, and you're gonna love it too. The curated deals makes it super simple to find great tickets at a great price and no more sifting through thousands of deals. I recently grabbed a super deal for a prime seat, and I couldn't believe the value. That was the steal. That, my friends, was the Game Time Pick. It was the top 1% of the value, and the seat view feature is a game changer. Before you hit buy, you can see exactly what the seat will look like at the venue. It's so reassuring. And the best part, you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better seat somewhere else, they'll refund 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. All right, Scotty, the Red Wings play their final game before the break on Saturday. That's tomorrow by the time people are listening to this. And the Tampa Bay Lightning are right in the thick of things against both Tampa Bay, against Detroit and Ottawa. With the Ottawa Senators, as of recording this, again, because Ottawa and Tampa are playing, so this could very well shift by the end of that game. But as of recording this, Ottawa sits 1 point above Detroit for the first wild card and third in the Atlantic Division that Ottawa holds, Detroit holding the first wild card, and Tampa sits at 60 points in the second wild card spot with 2 games in hand. Now, that could shift if Tampa Bay ends up winning this game in regulation, and I'm praying this game ends in regulation one way or the other. The worst-case scenario for Detroit is it goes to overtime and both teams get points. But if Tampa Bay wins in regulation or overtime, I think just regulation, they push into third in the Atlantic. Ottawa gets bumped down to first in the wild card, and Detroit gets bumped down to second in the wild card. So it's a big game. It's a big week for Tampa Bay. A lot on the line. They had games in hand. They're making them up this week before the All-Star break. They are a team that, for some reason, is in a wild card spot. You look at their goal differential, Scotty, they're like plus 30 on the season. And historically speaking, a positive goal differential usually equates to a playoff spot. So them being sometimes on the outside looking in, sometimes in a wild card spot is bizarre, and I can't quite figure out why they're struggling right now.
Yeah, they've had the gradual decline of this team since the back-to-back is really kind of fascinating, and obviously part of that just comes with age, and they had to go through at least one, if not 2 expansion drafts. No, just the one, like in that time frame. So you know what I mean? Like you're talking about a team that has slowly, and like you can't pay everybody even with the salary cap games that teams like Vegas play, but they have slowly come down to earth each year, and have seemed to have fallen a little bit more, each year than when compared to the last. But I still. I don't have fear might be too dramatic of a word, but I still respect the heck out of this team when the Wings play them. And I still think that there's a lot of talent here. Obviously they lose Stamkos, but that's been kind of a roller coaster in Nashville anyway. Just I think that this team is a team that still can put up goals in big numbers. They still have gotten some decent production in net. They've still gotten, that we're accustomed to that as well. But I think fear kind of is the word, this offense, man. Like I still think that this is a team that at the end of the day, I have in the back of my head, like they could go out there and score 5+ any given night.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Is their offense, but and the thing is that they're not bad defensively because they'll never be bad defensively as long as Vasilevsky's in there. Like they might give up a lot of
Right.
opportunities, but he has a 918 save percentage on the year.
Is
That's
it that
amongst
high?
918 in a
Jeez,
year.
well,
where
I disrespected him then by saying it was pretty solid or whatever wording I used, because I thought it was closer to like 910, 9, yeah, 910, 911, 912. So that's, yeah, if it's that high, then I mean, again, we've become accustomed to him. He's one of the best goalies in hockey.
Yeah, I mean, the Jonas Johansson as their backup only has 13 games played, but he has an 892 save percentage. So he's not great, but he doesn't play that much, right?
Right.
Vasilevsky's played 40. His goals against average is 2.3. Like, they're not letting up a bunch of goals across the season. They score a bunch. You can see that in their goal differential. So it feels like if they lose, they get blown out. Or if they lose, it's going to be like a 1-0 loss. Like, so either they're scoring and blowing opponents out, or they're not scoring at all. That's the only way I can see them, because they're 9-9-2 since Christmas. Like, if you do the same time frame that the Red Wings have gotten hot, they're 500. So they've been kind of just treading water since Christmas, not really making any headway while other teams surge. They had 2 separate 4-loss streaks before that, but then outside of that, they're pretty successful. They're top 5 power play. They're middle of the pack in terms of their penalty kill. I believe in their shot attempt share, they're middle of the pack there as well, 13th in the league. Their expected goals is, where is that floating at for them? Of course, I can never find it right when I'm looking for it.
You tell me, dude. That's your stat.
I'm trying to tell you, they're 10th. So they're top 10 in expected goals for percentage at 5-on-5. So at their worst, they're just okay at some, and at their best, they're like elite at others. But yet they're kind of just treading water despite all the analytics saying they should be. That's why I think they'll be fine. Like everything says that they'll be fine. I just cannot figure out how they're treading water with all these other teams. Like, I feel like they should be, with their goal differential, with their statistics, a little bit higher. So it's not a team you can take lightly by any stretch of the imagination. I know you beat them, shut them out last time they've played and faced each other, but this is still a really good Tampa Bay Lightning team.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about, as you mentioned there, I guess at the beginning of the segment, the big picture, kind of looking at teams we expect to be in the hunt with and kind of shoulder to shoulder with the rest of the season, I think, without a doubt, we're going to be standings watching and kind of keeping an eye on whatever Tampa does on a night in, night out basis.
Yeah, it's kind of terrifying.
One of those 2 points that feels like 4,
Yeah, I mean, you could make the case, obviously it's not literally 4 points, but like you can make the case that's very real, right? Against not just a division rival, but like with everything on the line going into this break, a spot for potentially a third in the division. Yeah. Again, whatever it depends on what the results are here tonight between Ottawa and Tampa Bay, but there's just so much on the line with this hockey game. Not that it'll make or break the season, whether or not they make the playoffs, but winning this game and winning it in regulation will go a heck of a long way to putting them in a position to have success on the other side. So it's a big, important game. Nikita Kucherov leads the team in points, 77 in 50 games. He doesn't slow down. Brendan Hagel's got 55 in 52. Braden Point has 53 and 47. Jake Gensel is turning out to be the right investment for the Tampa Bay Lightning, letting Steven Stamkos walk and getting an upgrade in that position. Because Jake Gensel, while being kind of a power play, not a power play specialist, but being very effective on the power play, is also good at 5-on-5. Steven Stamkos wasn't. So while I still think it's disrespectful to let your franchise leader in so many categories just walk away, it seems to have been a smart business decision with what they've been doing. And, of course, you still got Victor Hedman on the back end. He's got 42 points already. Yeah. You have a defenseman of 42 points, not even just 50 games played. I just don't understand how they're treading water. I don't get it. Maybe somebody who's been watching the Tampa Bay Lightning more closely can fill me in the comments, but, like, everything I'm seeing suggests they should be higher in the standings than they are, and they're just not, and I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all Period. Of their team stats are top 5, top 10 in most categories, as we just went over, and yet right. Here they are. So
I don't know. Let's head to another quick break, Scotty, unless you have anything else to add on the Lightning.
Mm-mm.
And we'll finish it off with our first How Do You Feel About It Friday in a long time. That's how you know it's a light episode. If we're doing How Do You Feel About It Fridays, that's how you know we were tapped out on topics for you guys. So stay tuned for that. Segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. Segment 3, Lockdown Red Wings podcast. I do think that the How Do You Feel About It Fridays, though, do give us some of the most entertaining non-hockey conversations. But, that's just biased because, we're us. So, Scotty, why don't you lead us off with
we are
us. We are us. Why don't you lead us off with the first How Do You Feel About It? And don't do the classic, this goes back to when Ethan was on the podcast, but the classic look around your room trying to find a topic to ask about.
That was the best, man. Shout out, Ethan. Oh
God, he's got to do it.
We are us. How do you feel about Toys R Us back in the day?
I have one vivid memory of going in Toys R Us and just being absolutely like overwhelmed and blown away with excitement going down the toy aisles, just because like it was like heaven for an 8-year-old, man. It was so awesome. No, they don't exist anymore.
Yeah, I know. R.I.P., man.
R.I.P. What about you?
Yeah, no, I didn't take too many trips to Toys R Us, but I have a similar kind of feeling where it was just like the couple few times that I do remember ever being in there. It was like literally the coolest thing ever. I feel like I've done more shopping for like birthday gifts, like for whatever, like my little sister or whatever over the years than I did ever actually for my own self. But I do have a couple of memories for sure of going in there and just being like, I could spend a day in here and be totally happy.
Right.
For sure.
How do you feel about Ben Johnson winning Assistant Coach of the Year?
I think it's deserved.
Yeah. How do you feel about Ben Johnson's departure in general?
He's an op now. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like I don't hate him. It's not like, oh, like you chose the Bears over us. Like, no, like there's 30 head coaching jobs in the world in that sport, dude. Like if you have an opportunity to take one, you take it. You don't go like, oh, well,
right.
Like he was a coach for a different team before he was the Lions coordinator. You don't see him like choosing loyalty to them either. Like you gotta do what you gotta do. I don't hate him for going to the Bears necessarily, but I am still a fan of the Lions, and the Lions fan in me hates the Bears. So like I hope they go 0-17 every year. Like I hope the Lions beat them by 50 every time we play him, and he's like the ESPN writes an article about how he's the worst head coach in football. Like, I hope it's a complete train wreck, but I have no ill will towards him personally. And I certainly don't like, I certainly do believe that he deserved, coordinator or assistant coach of the year, whatever the award was. I think he was the best OC in football.
Yeah, I echo those sentiments. I think, personally, I hope he has success. I don't begrudge him for taking, like you said, advantage of the opportunity. I wish him, in terms of like him being the coach of the Bears, I wish him nothing but failure. So it directly contradicts, like, I hope he has success professionally, just not in this division with this team. Like, you went to the wrong team, buddy. But I do think that, and this isn't me being mad at him, because you got to do what you got to do to make sure and secure a promotion in this league. But I do think that they should change when coaches can be interviewed, because it is kind of crazy that when you're trying to prepare for a playoff game, you spend most of your week interviewing with teams and calling other coaches, seeing if they want to be a part of it, and like having that knowledge that you're leaving. Sure. Like he knew he was leaving, but like he knew for sure he was leaving. He got that job offer. He was calling people, and I'm not like, begrudging him for that. Like, again,
no, that's just how the system's set up, and it's stupid. It's the same thing with college football with the transfer portal. It's like these. I do my family and friends and I do a massive like bowl mania thing every year where you try to guess who the winner of each bowl game is going to be and whatnot, and it's gotten to a point now where it's ridiculous and like we still all play it and love it because we've been doing it for decade plus or whatever, but like it's ridiculous now because you can transfer. The transfer portal opens before bowl games. Like, what are we doing? Like, it just feels like such a no-brainer to be like, hey, maybe let's wait until football's off season is the longest in sports. What are we doing? Like, why are we rushing this process? It's the exact same thing with coaching interviews in the NFL. I don't get it at all.
Yeah, 100%. I do have another one, if you're okay with me going back to
Sure,
back.
please.
Because I think you know more basketball than I do. How do you feel about the Pistons acquiring Dennis Schroeder?
Yeah, I was just talking about this a couple of hours ago with one of my good friends. I like it. He's certainly not what he used to be and what he was at his peak, but I think the guard depth just improved, and I also think that like he's not on a great contract, but it's a half-year rental, so like that's not our problem. I think it's really good use of cap space for the Pistons, and like I said, I think there's an argument we'll see if he like is here. He got traded to the Utah Jazz first and never played a game with them, and then got traded. So we'll see if he actually sticks around. But assuming he does, I have zero issue with it. I think it improves the guard depth, and like I said, his crappy contract isn't really our problem. So go listen to Koo though. Obviously, Locked On Pistons, great. One of the good shows that this network has to offer, and Koo does a great job. So
I think it is interesting too that he was on like 4 teams in less than 24 hours.
Yeah,
because of how like that massive trade worked out. That was crazy.
I think it was 3. Still, either way, yeah.
For the record, Aaron Glenn finished second in the Assistant Coach of the Year voting.
Yeah, I think that's probably also deserved. No one did more with less. Like he was completely gutted with his team and still put out, outside of the Buffalo Bills game and then the playoff game when it mattered most. He put up good defensive performances pretty much week in, week out. So, how do you feel about the world of anime right now? Any big anime news going on? So this is hilarious because I know that you have like 8 things you could talk about, and you're trying to pick which one you want to actually muster up the courage to bring up right now.
Which one is the most palatable? I did watch recently Look Back, which is an adaptation of a one-shot from the author Tatsuki Fujimoto. I think his name's Tatsuki. It's Fujimoto is his last name. He's also the author of Chainsaw Man, which is one of my favorite shonen anime manga right now. He's got chainsaws for arms. But Look Back is a one-shot that's, Chainsaw Man. It's very literal. It's awesome series. Yeah. But Look Back is a much more like grounded like conversation about what it means to be like a manga artist, but it's also told through the lens of a coming of age story. It's only like 50 minutes long. It was excellently animated, and it is a travesty it did not get nominated for any Oscars because
I was thinking the same thing, dude. I was like, where's Chainsaw Man? Like,
bro, I could go on a tear about how I feel that the anime industry gets shafted by like the Oscars and whatnot because they view animation as a medium for children when it is, but it's also it can be anything, right? It's like they treat it like a genre, but animation is a medium. And you got Inside Out 2 getting nominated, and I'm just like, what are we doing here? Like, come on now.
It's a medium.
Watch the movie.
Yeah, it's a medium, dude. Why don't they? Well, they don't get it that it's they don't know like us that it's a medium. They don't get it.
I know you're mocking me, but I'm very, very
no. They don't get it like we do, dude. It's a medium.
Yeah, like we get it. Yeah, we get it. How do you feel about the anime industry right now?
I think it's thriving. I have too many that I could list. It's a medium, and that it's a beautiful thing. That's really my biggest thing.
Have you ever watched a single episode of anime in your life? Like not counting Pokemon or anything.
Yeah, not like start to finish. No, I don't think I've ever sat down and like pressed play on one. No.
I know what we're doing next time we see each other.
It's also not. It's not like I'm not being like a hater. Like it's not like I think this sucks. Like it's just like I've just never done it. Like I'm willing to. I'm very, very willing to. I'm super down. I just haven't.
Yeah. Your loss.
You know what? It sounds like a lot of my friends agree with you there. So,
all right. Hey, got any final thoughts?
We ball.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode on Monday, recapping the game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and then we launch into 13 days off. We'll do some midseason evaluations. We'll talk about Four Nation face-offs as that's going on. So stay tuned for all that and more on the Locked On Red Wings podcast. Same time, same place. It's your team every day. It's the wrong button.